Welcome to another episode of Paradox Untold Stories from Athletic Directors. I am Dr. Danielle Lapointe, and my co host is Dr. Dustin Smith. And today we are in Hawaii. It's a special episode. We have Deren Oshiro with us today. How are you doing today, Deren?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
Yes, thank you for being here. Thank you also to Ticket Spigot, who is our sponsor of all of our episodes. And of course, Dustin, how are you doing today?
I'm outstanding. I mean, I'm not as good as Deren is for sure, because if you are watching us on YouTube, you can look at the background and that's actually a picture he took. And that's a place he gets to frequent. So the jealous meter on my end is way high today as we do this podcast, but I'm excited to have Deren. And so, Deren, I want to start off by saying aloha from the mainland. So just throwing a little culture out there for those who may not listen, understand what aloha means, but we'll talk about that in a little bit. But I'm excited to have Deren on here. We've been talking for a couple of weeks now, trying to get this scheduled and trying to get him on. I've known Deren through a really a past guest of ours, Rich Barton, really brought Deren's name to me and said, "Hey, you need to talk to Deren." Deren faces some unique challenges that we don't face here in Arkansas for sure, and I know that Danielle doesn't face them in Florida, and we'll dive into that a little bit. But Deren, what I always like to ask our guests that come on here is first, tell us what makes Deren Oshiro that we won't hear or won't see in the resume. Tell us who you are, what you like to do outside of this athletic director crazy world we live in.
Well, I guess I'm a glasses half full guy. Years ago, our head of school had us do one of those assessments where you fill out a questionnaire and you go through a little study, and they come back, and out of 100 different characteristics, you have your ranking 1 through 5. And for me, what came back number 1 was positivity. So I don't know how that benefits myself or my family or my school, but I've been told that I'm pretty positive, and I do think I'm a glasses half full person. So I think that's been good for me. I've been an administrator here. This is my 23rd year as athletic director at Hawaii Baptist Academy, and prior to that, I was teaching and coaching here for 9 years. So been with the school quite a while. It's been a blessing to be here, and I feel called to be here. I feel called to the school, and then I felt called to serve as athletic director, and I still feel the calling today. So I like to call what I do joyous work. So although, as you know, there's a lot of time and energy that serving a school as an athletic administrator takes. Oh my gosh, we have a random we're either having a fire drill or a lockdown drill. I'm going to shelter.
That they're a drill before we continue, please.
No, I remembered the email now.
Okay.
I'm going to shelter in place. Okay. My door is locked already. I have my sign that I'm in a Zoom call, so I'm going to shelter in place. And if I get scoldings later from my admin, I'll take it. Been married 27 years. I have a daughter and a son. My daughter just got married in January, so I kind of entered that phase. My son is starting his senior year in college. We just got our first family pet ever, a dog, about a year and a half ago. So, as you all know, if you're pet owners, a pet becomes a family member
very quickly.
So my wife and I feel like we have a third child, but our dog's been a joy for us. I like to golf when I can, go to the beach. I used to run quite a bit. In my old age now, I have a foot that doesn't cooperate, so I can't do as much running. Serve at a church. But yeah, that's about it for me. It's been a blessing for me to be here at HBA and just see our program grow as the school itself has grown as well. So
But
I
it's
I just
hard to
need to.
say it's not a blessing when you see the background and you know what Hawaii is. It's hard to not see that positivity.
I need also to ask you, like, is things going crazy over there because we can't hear anything? So, is there like alarms going off, and, like announcements being made, and you're just like being really calm and cool and talking through all of it to us?
well, there was like a little siren, like a whoop, whoop, and then the emergency light in my ceiling was flashing. But yeah,
So
there's a lockdown drill going on. I forgot about it. Sorry.
no, I just think that this is a perfect example of how ADs can just kind of work through whatever they gotta work through. Maybe it's ignoring the drill, maybe it's a parent, maybe it's an official. Doesn't really, but you are just powering through like nothing is going on. So that's impressive for
Yeah,
sure.
and
Appreciate it.
I think about I've seen the movie Pearl Harbor, and we talked before we got on the air about the Pearl Harbor cruise that I went on, and people of Hawaii understand those those drills. You got to be real cognizant of just because that hits close to home. Obviously, what happened back in was the 40s when that took place, and um, I applaud your calmness in this process, even though that it's a drill, and I understand that, but. I know the sensitivity that is, much like tornadoes for us. When there's a drill now, we're just like, oh, it's just a drill. We're used to it. But you're just powering through, and I appreciate that, Deren.
Oh, no problem. I like I said, I might hear from somebody higher up the food chain saying, "Hey, how come you didn't join us? I just have more important things to do here."
Yeah, you just tell us
Not
Yeah.
you're on
not a
paradox.
problem. Not a problem.
So let me ask. We talk about you being in Hawaii, Deren. Let's talk about. I mean, there's islands out there and what that makes up. Tell us geographically exactly where your school is located there at HBA and in relation to the islands that are there.
Yeah. So if you kind of picture the Hawaiian Islands, if you have a picture of it and you kind of see the chain, the biggest island is kind of in your lower right hand field of vision, if you will. And then if it extends kind of up into the left or toward the west, you have biggest island to smallest island. We're kind of somewhere up toward the left, Oahu, and Oahu is the most populated island. Honolulu, I think maybe about 340, 350,000 population. I think the state itself is about 1.4 million. So Oahu is the most populated island. Our league, my school is close to downtown. We're about maybe 4 or 5 miles away from Waikiki, so just up toward the mountains. One of the things unique about Hawaii is, and for people that haven't been able to travel to the mainland, not the states, but the mainland. So well done earlier, Justin. You know that
Yeah.
you receive some points for that, bonus points. Um, Directionally, we often refer to Mauka, Mauka, and Makai, Makai, and Mauka means mountains, and Makai means ocean. So here in Hawaii, because mountains are always in view. Whether it's like on Oahu, there's two mountain ranges, and then on some of the other islands, there's actually dormant volcanoes. That's how people offer directions. Oh, we're Mauka of this. That means you're more towards the mountain. Or we're on the Makai side of the street. That means you're more towards the ocean. So when they go to the mainland and there's somewhere where it's flat, then you really have to know your directions
Right.
and read signs and all that. But so our school is on Oahu. Oahu houses or is home to the two biggest leagues in the state. One league, the OIA, is all public schools. The other league, the ILH, Interscholastic League of Honolulu, of which HBA is a member, is just private schools. Um, there are three other leagues in the state. One is on Kauai. One is called the Maui Interscholastic uh, League. The Maui League actually encompasses schools from Maui, one from Lanai, and one from Molokai. And then there's a Big Island League, Big Island Interscholastic Federation. So we're geographically challenged, if you will, because we basically play within our leagues um, until we get to the state championships. And that always um, entails a lot of teams having to travel. And so, it's not like on the mainland in a lot of places where you can just hop on a bus and go play a road game or, convene a couple of teams for a tournament. Um, Cost of travel is cost prohibitive because you're almost always jumping on a plane if you're playing interleague or for state championships. And I should mention for Maui, when they just have their league games, because they have schools on three different islands, a lot of times they will use a ferry or a prop plane. The teams will play on a Friday, a doubleheader on a Friday night and a Saturday, and they'll stay overnight at the school. So they'll help each other out, and um, there's a certain camaraderie that develops. So even though they're competing, they kind of get to know one another because they're playing each other back to back. Again, to save cost. Um, but
Well,
yeah,
you're not. I mean, when you say like I would be booking a charter, I always be referring to a bus, but you actually are booking like a charter plane, like a real plane
yeah,
that you're.
they're not. Yeah, to be clear, they're not charters. I mean, we're it's a commercial flight. But yeah, it's cost prohibitive, right? So um, it's just the way it is,
So when you say
for
when
us
you
out
say
here.
doubleheader, Darren, do you play a doubleheader Friday and a doubleheader Saturday to get 4 games in, or is it a game Friday and a game Saturday?
Well, I think most times for that league, that particular league, on the Maui League, it's a Friday Saturday thing. Um, but if travel is not a problem, you can have a double round robin league format, and you might play School A 1 week, and maybe 2 weeks later they'll come and visit you. Um, but for that league, that's not how it works. So it's not unlike what our local university, University of Hawaii at Manoa, it's not unlike what they did during the pandemic. There were some schools um, that they didn't play at all, and other schools that they played twice. So if a school from California flew to Hawaii, they played each other 2 times, and there was it was here.
Right,
If
no
Hawaii,
return trip.
right, if Hawaii went and played on the mainland, they would play let's say the California school twice, and that was it. So again, issues with travel and just the inherent challenges of being isolated and being an island state. So
No,
So
we try to make it work.
with that, what about officials? I mean, we have a shortage of officials in the states or the mainland, I guess I should say. We've got a we've got
wow,
we've got a
wow.
shortage of officials in the mainland. Do you have a shortage of officials in Hawaii that you have to deal with? And I would assume that the number of officials being what they are, it's difficult sometimes to get officials at some of those games.
Exactly. I think whatever you folks are experiencing up there, um, it's the same situation here. A lack of officials and a decreasing number. Right. It's not even like it would be one thing if it was relatively low but stable, but it's low and it continues to decrease, and it's kind of an aging group. So as we were kind of going through COVID and now hopefully coming out of COVID, that was an issue because we lost some officials for that concern. Some that didn't want to continue. Um, but yeah, it's an issue that we really don't have a solution to. We know it's driven by a number of factors, of course, just with um, how maybe they're treated by spectators and coaches, and um, the workload is, and if they choose to do it, they maybe sometimes they want to work less than they're assigned. Um, so and I just think it's a different generation. Maybe part of it is not as many quote unquote younger people want to give back, want to serve. So yeah, it's not anything unique to the mainland. I mean, it's a struggle here too. So
So let
And
me ask you this: instead of the handshake line after a game, do you guys just hit each other with a shaka?
pretty much, I mean, you're cracking Danielle up. It's pretty funny.
I can't.
Uh,
I'm sorry. I
That's true
apologize for
though.
my
That's
co-host.
dang
yeah,
Look at him.
right.
He just likes
yeah,
doing it.
yeah. So maybe not a shaka. It's more just like a traditional wave, like hey, good game.
The team
Uh,
that won does the chakra, not the team that lost.
if you were here, Dustin, and it was after the game, though,
That's
we
what I'm
would give
talking
it a
about.
shot.
See, you get to
Yes.
do that.
I think it's only one hand. Is it one hand or is it two hand, Darren?
Eh, It's whatever you want it to
Yeah,
be.
You can
It's
embarrass Dustin.
usually
It's fine. He's throwing two, but I
he
think
was
it's
throwing
one.
two too. He did that early, if you remember. But uh,
What about what about your weather? Does that also throw a whole nother loophole into things? Like I know here in Florida, lightning and afternoon storms are definitely a concern for games. Do you guys have similar stuff or maybe worse things?
we rarely have issues with weather. I mean, it's very temperate, moderate, right? So there's not a big variance in temperature. So we almost never have issues with lightning. Um, but we do once in a while have issues with heat index. Um,
Yeah, we
so
do that too. Yeah.
where the temperature is pretty high, but the humidity is really high. And here in Hawaii, when we don't have the trade winds, when the winds don't blow from the northeast, um, and it's either very little wind or the wind's coming from the opposite direction or from the south, it gets really, really muggy and uncomfortable. And that's when we see if you're using the wet bulb,
Hmm.
um, that's when we see the numbers skyrocket. And so, like right now for fall, we're in cross country season. So our athletic trainers every day they're putting out the wet bulb, and they're monitoring that. So sometimes they'll tell our coaches, "Hey, got to scale down the workout today," or something like that. Because where we're running to, it's almost all asphalt and cement. So we don't have the luxury of being close to a park and running on grass or running in shade. So um, that's kind of the major issue here in terms of weather. It's just the heat and the heat index.
well, and
There are,
hurricanes. I mean, don't throw those. Don't forget those.
yeah,
Or
once in a while,
volcanoes, right? Don't you have volcanoes? Like, let's not just overlook those.
yeah. I mean, there's one on the Big Island, but it's not close to a high school and all that. But I will say, I don't know if you guys experience this on the mainland, but there are some schools here too where uh, if they have an artificial surface, artificial turf field, um, if the trade winds aren't blowing and it's a hot day, the football teams can't practice because it's just too hot.
The turf gets too
So
hot. Hmm.
right, so that's one of the advantages of having a grass field. The grass fields stay quite a bit cooler. Uh, so
When you've got the weather to have grass fields a little more. My weather in Greenwood and Arkansas as a whole is so moody. Mother Nature is just moody here. She just changes all kinds of levels, and one day it could be 85, and the next day it could be 32, and you just deal with a whole lot of up and down the roller coaster stuff. But you've got pretty set temperatures, except for the heat index and the humidity sometimes. But most of the time, the weather's pretty pleasant.
yes, yes, and once in a while we'll have rain, you know, and if it's steady, issues with that. But yeah, I mean nothing like regular issues with lightning or anything like that. So
And never
we're
snow. You
fortunate.
don't ever have to worry about snow or ice.
No, no.
I mean, we do that in Arkansas quite a bit. Have to deal with ice and travel, and obviously the issues that would arise because of snow and ice. People here, if you mention snow, they just freak out and start shutting things down and go buy all the milk and bread from the store because they think it's the snowpocalypse and you're not going to be able to get out for like 3 months, and really overreaction. But that's not something you have to deal with, clearly.
So you don't have a lot of game cancellations then, just in general?
No, we don't. We don't.
You just made a lot of ADs across the country jealous.
You're like, they weren't with him being in Hawaii.
I was just going to say, look at my background, and I don't do game cancellations, so I'm Deren. That is awesome.
Yeah,
That's very good.
I would say the sport that has to reschedule the most, maybe it's either soccer or baseball, softball, just because the condition of the field. It doesn't take a whole lot of rain to potentially make the field unplayable. But yeah, other than that, I mean, football, they'll slog through it, or they're playing on artificial surfaces. A lot of other sports are indoors. So
when is soccer and baseball, softball season in Hawaii?
Soccer is a winter sport here.
Okay.
Here too.
And baseball and softball are spring.
And here, soccer is a spring sport. Soccer, baseball, softball, track all go on in the spring here.
And in New York, like the upstate region, soccer is a fall sport. Find that very interesting. How it's that seems to be the number one sport that's moved to the different seasons of soccer.
I mean, probably a factor is weather too, right?
Definitely, yeah, definitely.
You don't want to be outside in the winter months. So.
I remember being in high school in New York and having to shovel our field so we could practice for lacrosse. And I didn't like it. I did not enjoy that.
That's not the only thing Deren's got to worry about. Snow or ice is not on his radar at all.
Nope.
Lucky you.
Now, I don't know if this is a silly question, but do you guys have any sports that are unique to Hawaii that maybe we don't offer on the mainland?
That's an interesting question. I believe that Hawaii has the most sanctioned state championships out of all 50 states, because we have state championships in canoe paddling. We have state championships in judo, sporter air riflery, which is a fall sport. And then we have league. In our league, we have interscholastic kayaking. We also have another state championship sport that you don't probably see too often on the mainland. Too many places on the mainland is bowling. We have a whole bunch in addition to all of the traditional sports. We obviously don't have ice hockey, lacrosse, field hockey, things like that. But yeah, we have those other ones. We also, in our league, we also have interscholastic sailing.
Ooh, that's fun.
So yeah,
now when you say like kayaking and stuff, are you talking like for speed, or is there like little rapids? Like, is it both? Like what?
No. It's not rapids. It's kind of like it's flat water. So they'll have sprints, they'll have distance races, sprint races, and that's just kayaking is just for our league. It's not a state sport. For Hawaii, for us to sponsor a state championship, 3 of the 5 leagues have to sponsor the sport. So kayaking is one of those where it's only our league. Some leagues also have surfing. Our league does not. We had issues trying to get an insurance rider since it's open ocean, but other leagues do have.
I wanted you to have surfing so badly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to ask about cliff diving, because there's swimming and diving in Arkansas would look a whole lot different than diving in Hawaii. Probably another insurance Probably couldn't get an insurance writer to write that policy up for you though.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know about that one. A little dangerous.
I mean, I've been to Hawaii and I've seen some of the like the North Shore. Some of the waves at the North Shore are pretty, as they would say in surfing terms, gnarly. But they are
He's got
some
to stop.
stout. I'm just trying to be one of the people.
We know you're trying. We see. We see it.
But that is the North Shore. They're infamous or famous for some rather tall waves, depending on the year or depending on whether the tide's in or not. But I'm speaking some Hawaiian language here that Deren would understand.
Oh wow.
Appreciate it.
I mean,
Do you? So some do have surfing. Just yours doesn't, right? Like, is that how that works? Some schools do have it.
Yes, some leagues.
Some
Our
leagues,
league
okay.
does not sponsor it. And then there are some leagues that they have actual interscholastic competition. I think there might be another league or two that they just offer it as a club sport. There are also some schools or some leagues that do esports too, but that's kind of like a school by school thing. Our school doesn't do the video games.
so when you talk about
So,
your leagues, Deren, just to paint the picture, how many schools are in your league? Or you said the private league and the public schools. So how many schools are in the league on the island you're on?
yeah, so on Oahu, our private school league, I believe I believe we're at 20 or 21 member schools right now. OIA, the public schools, I think 24. Um, and then the rest of the other three leagues combined, statewide, I think we have about 91 or 92 schools. Um, so again, we're separated on islands. So yeah, so less than 100 high schools in terms of interscholastic sports programs.
And those can range from sizes to like what we consider on the mainland small school to a large school. Obviously, do they all play each other there? Do you guys in your league play every school in the league, or do you determine it by size and kind of split up that way?
At the state championship level, we only have two divisions. So division for most sports, Division One are the bigger schools in terms of enrollment. Division Two are the smaller schools. Um, Football is the only sport where we have three divisions. We have an open, and then a Division One and a Division Two. But unlike a lot of states, the way our high school athletic association is set up, they allow the leagues to classify themselves or determine their own classification criteria. So how the public schools on Oahu determine who's in which division varies from how we do it. For our private school league, it's almost all based on enrollment. Um, other leagues will take into account competitive level. They'll kind of have a power ranking. There'll be much more movement every couple of years. Um, on the Big Island, I think it's basically by choice. So it varies. So it's we're very, very unique when it comes to that, with the leagues determining how they're going to be classifying their schools. But once you get to the state championships, it's either Division One or Division Two, with the exception again of football. So
We're
our private.
talking.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, so our private school league is uh, very it's disparate, where you might have a huge school with a ton of facilities, 2,500 students or 2,000 students in high school, and you might have another school that has 50 students in their high school and no facilities, or playing in one league. So our league actually has three divisions, um, which is unique in comparison to the other four leagues. So again, very different, and the leagues just try to make it work for each of their member schools.
So I think about some of the challenges that you may face, and think about our national association that you're a part of, and you're a candidate for an at-large position on the board, and you think about some of those time changes. Some people on the East Coast may say, "Hey, let's have a 9 a.m. meeting," which for you is going to be like 3 in the morning. And so, what's the adjustment like for you when you come to the mainland, as far as adjusting to time zones, adjusting to just the differences, obviously, of what you're used to on a daily basis?
Uh, whenever the let's take the National Athletic Directors Conference. Whenever the NADC is in Orlando, as it has been uh, 2 or 3 times in my time attending, or Washington D.C., anywhere that far east, it travel is a bear. Um, so you're having to take an overnight flight most times. So I try to fly in a day early. So whatever day I know I'm going to have meetings or do anything related to the conference, I'll try to have one. I don't want to have to land after flying overnight and then have a meeting or something that I need to do that particular day.
Right.
So that's the main thing traveling. When you're traveling back home, when you're coming from anywhere east and flying west, you're actually gaining time, so to speak. So it's so much easier. But flying east is difficult. So um, I've been going to the NEDC. I've gone every year that it's been held in person. It wasn't held in person, obviously, in 2020, but I've gone to every conference since 2008. Um, my first conference was in San Diego, um, but it's been twice in San Antonio, twice in Orlando, twice in DC, and this will be second time in Nashville
Well,
this
I
December.
support having it in Hawaii. Just throwing it out there for the universe to hear that if
Maybe that'll be the platform I run on. When I give a speech.
Yeah.
We will bring the conference to Hawaii.
As you hear cheers from the audience.
Yeah. And I don't think that'll ever happen, just in reality, but it's always fun. It's always fodder, right? It's fun to talk about. But
well, does Section 7 ever meet in Hawaii?
Actually, they do, and they're set to come in this coming June, so 2023. So every 3 years or so, they meet here. The last 2 years, it's been in Vegas. But yeah, in 2023, it'll be on Kauai. So our Section 7, the 5 states are Hawaii, California, Nevada, Utah, and Arizona. So our friends from the other 4 states, they'll be coming here in June. So.
Well, and if somebody on the board gets to make that trip too.
Yes. No. Yeah. The last time Hawaii hosted Section 7, I think it was 2019. I remember Josh Scott came, Phil Risen was here, I believe Mike Blackburn, maybe Rich Barton.
They were just forced to go there for the meeting. Just had to do it.
Yeah. People do a good job of clearing their schedule when the meeting's in Hawaii.
Everyone can come.
If you want to make sure there's attendance, you just have it in Hawaii, and people will find a way to get there.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, travel's not a problem when it's in Hawaii. They're like, "Yeah, we're going. We'll be at every meeting that you have."
Yeah, it's fun. It's always a good time.
So one thing we like to ask Deren, we kind of joked about this before we got on here, is the stories, and I know you've got actual visible evidence of one that just took place recently for you. Some moments of just laughter. I mean, I could sit and talk about just the challenges that you have all day, but I think some of this is we just want to have some fun, and sometimes it's at our own expense. And you've got a story, I know, at least with a wrestling match you had, maybe with your trunk hatch that didn't go so well. So do you mind?
Those of you watching on YouTube, check it out.
There's a little bump there too, I think. It's not just a cut.
It does look like the injuries you sustain, that boxers and MMA fighters sustain. So, I could say, hey, you should see the other guy. But yeah, you're right, Dustin. I mean, I shared this with Dustin and Danielle before we went live here, but just Tuesday night, I was leaving campus here after our first volleyball match of the season, and that didn't quite close my trunk properly, meaning getting out of the way, and that's how I sustained this cut, and I didn't even know I was bleeding. I slammed it, boom, I hit myself, probably concussed. I'm getting ready I get in the car, and I was feeling just to see if a bump was forming, which it was. But then it was kind of like slimy, and then I noticed I was bleeding. So I had to get out of my car, go to the restroom, get paper towels, and then apply direct pressure on my way home. Ice at home, like I sustained an athletic injury. But yeah, I don't know. And yesterday I was at the grocery store. Yeah, that's what it was. Yesterday at the grocery store, this tiny woman, it's real sweet. She's like, "Oh, what happened to your eye? What happened?" And I'm like, "Tell you the truth, I slammed the trunk hatch on my
should have went with the boxer story."
And I said, it was so embarrassing. And she just said, "Did anybody see?" So I said, "I hope not." So anyway,
so what was that conversation like with your wife when you got home? You're bleeding or you're patched up. What did you tell her? Did you come up with a great story, or was it just simply, I tried to shut the trunk and my face got in the way?
I told her that what I did, and she says, "Oh, I've done that too."
Supportive wife, I like it.
So yeah, I don't know what's in the water in our house, but we need to do a better job. No, and again, totally first world problem. I half tongue in cheek joke about how I miss my auto close. It's we for myself, my wife's most recent car we bought, but I'm on my third or fourth lease in a row, so every 3 years I just lease a new car. We decided that works well. But my last lease, I had one of those fancy, you hit the button and the thing closes, and you approach your car, you hit a button and it opens.
Right.
And I really missed that. So I was thinking about that some Tuesday night.
His next car that's going to be his first question. There'll be no other question. Does it have an automatic trunk opener?
Yep.
And if it was me, I'd be throwing my wife under the bus. See, my wife, she can't get out of the way of it when she lowers it, so I got to make sure she's protected. That's why I'm just looking out for her.
I will say this in my defense. It does feel heavy with the hydraulics, and so you can't stand to the side and just like tap it shut. You have to like really pull hard on it. So you're actually having, I think most people probably have to, well, part of it is I'm vertically challenged. So I'm only 5'7", but I feel like I have to stand under there to get leverage and then get it going. And then I have to kind of move out of the way. But
Deren, I have the button.
My goal going forward will be to never do it again.
Smart
Keep
move,
us updated on that.
Yeah.
I think about you saying you're vertically challenged, and we were on a phone call or a Zoom call not long ago where I told people I was follically challenged. So we all have our challenges that we've got to deal with, and yours was just wrestling a tailgate, apparently.
Yep, unfortunately.
Well, all good. Get it out now, good. And not when you're giving a speech in Nashville. When you're running at large, you don't have that picture on your flyer, Deren.
Or do.
Yeah. Got to Photoshop that out.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you taking the time to, get off of the beautiful beach you have in your background and come and talk to us. And hope you don't get in any trouble for skipping your lockdown drill. Even
Yeah,
though
I'll check. I'll
technically
check
you
in.
sheltered
I'll
in
check
place,
in after
so
this.
I was gonna say you
No,
sheltered
yeah,
in place. So technically, I feel like you're good.
yeah.
Well,
I'll see.
I will say mahalo, and I guess aloha. You could say aloha too, but I'll say mahalo for joining us. Thanks for being a part of this, and thanks for shedding us a little light on what life's like out on islands. Life's a beach. I understand that, and you can kind of attest to that. But man, Deren, I appreciate you jumping on here. I know it's early there. When I say early, it's early in your day. I'm about to go to volleyball matches right now, so I've got stuff that we're a little later in the day, obviously. But I thank you for jumping on here and shedding a little light on what life's like in Hawaii and the challenges you face, because it's real. It's stuff that you deal with on a regular basis, and I appreciate that insight you provided today.
Thanks so much for having me. This is a lot of
Yeah.
fun. So,
Yeah. Thank you.
always fun.
Mahalo.
Always fun to tease myself and.
Well, I think it's fascinating, all of the different challenges and the different ways that people across our country, do the same job. So thank you for sharing that with us. And thank you to Ticket Spigot, who sponsors all of our episodes. See everybody next week with another one.